Dragon Emperor's hatchlings vanished for days, found as kittens sleeping on human janitor's lap. Before we dive into this story, drop a quick hi in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. It really helps support the channel. In the vast reaches of the Drakian Empire, nestled at the heart of the central diplomatic station orbiting Nexus Prime, a crisis was unfolding that threatened interstellar peace. The Emperor's precious hatchlings had vanished without a trace. The sprawling Nexus station hummed with diplomatic activity as representatives from 100 worlds conducted the delicate dance of galactic politics. Most of the station's inhabitants were entirely unaware of the growing panic behind the sealed doors of the Drakian embassy. It was there that Tyler Grant, a human janitor with calloused hands and tired eyes, was about to become the center of the most significant diplomatic incident in recent galactic history. Tyler had never intended to work as a janitor on an interstellar diplomatic station. 6 years ago, he'd been a promising engineering student with dreams of designing the next generation of deep space explorers. Then came the accident that claimed his parents' lives and left his younger sister in need of expensive medical treatments. The janitorial position on Nexus Station paid well, hazard pay for working alongside volatile alien species, and offered excellent healthcare benefits that extended to family back on Earth. Dreams could wait, family couldn't. His shift had just begun when the alert came through on everyone's communication devices. The message was terse but unmistakable in its urgency. Notice, the offspring of His Imperial Majesty Emperor Kraz of the Drakian Empire have gone missing within Nexus Station. All personnel are to remain vigilant. Report any sightings immediately to station security. Do not approach. Repeat, do not approach. Tyler paused, leaning on his cleaning cart as he read the message. The Drakians were among the most feared and respected species in known space. Reptilian beings standing nearly 9 feet tall, with armored scales that could deflect small arms fire, and the ability to exhale superheated plasma when threatened. Their metabolism ran hot, quite literally. A Drakian's body temperature averaged around 180 degrees Fahrenheit. Their young were said to be even more volatile, with uncontrolled plasma bursts being common until they reached maturity. Great, Tyler muttered to himself. Deadly fire-breathing baby dragons loose on the station. That's exactly what I needed today. The loudspeaker system crackled to life. All non-essential personnel are instructed to return to their quarters until further notice. Security teams are conducting a station-wide search. Compliance is mandatory. Tyler sighed and turned his cart around. His supervisor would count this as paid time, at least. As he pushed his cart toward the maintenance access corridors that would take him back to the human sector, he heard a soft scratching sound from an air vent overhead. Tyler froze. Working on the station for years had taught him to recognize the sounds of various systems: air recyclers, waste management, water circulation. This wasn't any of those. The scratching came again, followed by a high-pitched sound somewhere between a chirp and a mewl. "Hello," Tyler called softly, immediately feeling foolish. If something was in the ventilation system, it wouldn't respond to. The vent cover burst open, clattering to the floor. Tyler jumped back, heart pounding. Then a small head poked out, scaled and reptilian, but with enormous eyes that gleamed with intelligence and curiosity. The creature was about the size of a house cat, with iridescent purple-black scales and tiny ridges along its spine that glowed with inner heat. A Drakian hatchling. Tyler's first instinct was to run. His second was to call security. He reached slowly for his communicator. The hatchling made that chirping sound again, then without warning launched itself from the vent. Tyler yelped and raised his arms to protect his face, expecting to feel razor claws or superheated plasma. Instead, he felt a gentle weight land on his shoulder. The hatchling nuzzled against his neck, making a sound that reminded Tyler of his sister's cat purring. Hi there," Tyler said cautiously. "You should probably not be doing that. I need to call security," and the hatchling tensed, its purr turning to a low growl at the word security. Its tiny claws dug slightly into Tyler's uniform. Okay, Tyler said soothingly. "No security." "Got it." The hatchling relaxed, resuming its purring. Then, to Tyler's astonishment, a second scaled head poked out of the vent, followed by a third. Both hatchlings had the same iridescent scales, though one had more of a greenish tinge and the other a blue-black coloration. "There are more of you?" Tyler whispered. "Of course there are." Within moments, all three hatchlings had jumped down onto Tyler, climbing around his shoulders and head like playful kittens. One settled on top of his head, curling into his hair. Another draped itself across his shoulders like a scarf. The third climbed down into his front pocket, its small head poking out. Tyler stood perfectly still, terrified of doing anything that might upset the dangerous baby dragons using him as a climbing frame. His mind raced. The entire station was looking for these creatures, and here they were, treating him like a jungle gym. If he called security, they might panic the hatchlings. If he didn't call security, he'd be harboring the missing offspring of the most feared emperor in the galaxy. "What am I supposed to do with you?" he asked the hatchling in his pocket, who responded by nipping playfully at his finger, careful not to break the skin. Despite their fearsome reputation, the hatchlings seemed remarkably gentle. The station-wide alert system blared again. "Attention! His Imperial Majesty Emperor Kraz will be arriving at Nexus Station in 2 hours to oversee the search for the Imperial offspring. All diplomatic functions are suspended. Security protocols Delta 9 are now in effect." The hatchling on Tyler's head stiffened, its tiny claws digging into his scalp. Tyler winced, but remained still. "You don't want to see your dad, huh?" Tyler asked softly. The hatchling relaxed slightly, but made a disgruntled chirping sound. Tyler made a decision. He couldn't just stand in the corridor with 3 dragon hatchlings on his person. He needed somewhere quiet to think, somewhere away from prying eyes. There was a maintenance closet nearby that he often used for breaks. No one else ever went there. "All right, little ones," he whispered. "Let's go somewhere quieter, and I'll figure out what to do." Careful not to jostle his precious cargo, Tyler pushed his cleaning cart toward the maintenance closet. The door slid open with a hydraulic hiss, revealing a small room packed with cleaning supplies, a worn chair, and a tiny break table. Tyler maneuvered inside and let the door close behind him. Once inside, the hatchlings became more animated, jumping down to explore the small space. They sniffed at the various cleaning solutions. Tyler quickly moved the more toxic ones out of reach, climbed the shelves, and chittered to each other in what seemed like conversation. Tyler watched them, fascinated despite his predicament. These weren't mindless, dangerous beasts. They were intelligent, playful young creatures. Their movements were coordinated, deliberate, and they clearly communicated with each other through a complex series of chirps, growls, and body language. After thoroughly exploring the closet, all 3 hatchlings returned to Tyler. The blue-black one climbed up his leg and settled in his lap. The purple one took up position on his shoulder again. The green-tinged hatchling, apparently the most adventurous, perched on top of his head once more. "So," Tyler said conversationally, "you're the missing Imperial hatchlings that have the entire station in lockdown. Want to tell me why you're hiding from everyone, including your dad?" The hatchling in his lap looked up at him with intelligent eyes and made a series of complicated sounds. "I'll take that as a yes," Tyler replied with a small smile. "But I don't speak Drakian, unfortunately." The hatchling in his lap seemed to consider this, then raised a tiny clawed hand and touched Tyler's chest, right over his heart. Tyler felt a strange warmth spread through him, not uncomfortable, but definitely unusual. Then, astoundingly, he heard a voice in his mind, high-pitched, childlike, but clear, danger. "Hide. Father angry, Tyler gasped. "Did you just—" "Yes," came the thought voice again. Limited connection. "We are Flametail." The hatchling touched its chest. Then it pointed to the one on Tyler's shoulder. "Skysinger." Finally, it indicated the one on Tyler's head. Stormclaw. "We are Clutchkin." "You can communicate telepathically?" Tyler whispered, amazed. "Only basic. With compatible minds. Most aliens not compatible. You different. You calm. You safe." Tyler felt a surge of protectiveness. Whatever was happening here, these young creatures had sought him out specifically, had chosen him for refuge. "Why are you hiding from your father?" Tyler asked gently. Flametail, the hatchling in his lap, projected a series of impressions rather than words: fear, anger, a sense of betrayal, and most prominently, an image of the three hatchlings being separated from each other. "He's going to separate you?" Tyler asked, trying to make sense of the jumbled emotions and images. "Yes," Flametail confirmed. Asterisk treaty negotiations. Each to different world as symbols. Asterisk. Tyler understood immediately. The hatchlings were to be sent as living symbols of alliance to different worlds, separated from each other. It was political, pragmatic, and completely disregarded the fact that these were intelligent young beings with feelings and desires of their own. "That's why you ran away," Tyler said softly. "You don't want to be separated." All three hatchlings projected agreement, their emotions washing over Tyler in waves: fear, determination, and a deep, unbreakable bond with each other. They were siblings, clutchkin as they called it, and the thought of separation was unbearable to them. Tyler ran a hand gently over Flametail's scaled head. The scales were warm to the touch, but not dangerously hot. "I understand wanting to keep your family together, but hiding isn't a permanent solution. Your father is the Emperor. He'll tear this station apart looking for you. Help us," came the simultaneous plea from all three hatchlings, their mental voices overlapping into a single desperate request. Tyler leaned back in his chair, the weight of the situation settling on him. He was a janitor, a nobody. What could he possibly do against the will of a dragon emperor? But looking at the three small creatures who had placed their trust in him, Tyler knew he had to try something. His communicator beeped with another station-wide alert. "Emperor Kraw's ship has arrived ahead of schedule. All personnel are to remain in their current locations unless directed otherwise by security." Tyler's time had just run out. "Okay," he said, making a decision. "I'll help you, but you need to stay hidden and stay quiet. And we need a plan better than hiding in a maintenance closet." The hatchlings chittered excitedly, rubbing against him in what seemed like gratitude. Warmth spread through Tyler's chest that had nothing to do with the hatchlings' elevated body temperature. First, Tyler needed information. Why exactly were the hatchlings being separated? What were these treaty negotiations? He wasn't privy to high-level diplomatic discussions, but he knew someone who might have access to that information. Tyler activated his communicator but didn't open a station-wide channel. Instead, he called a direct, private line. "Lauren? It's Tyler. I need your help with something. Can you talk?" Lauren Bennett's voice came through, sounding stressed. "Tyler, this is literally the worst possible time. The station's in lockdown. We've got a dragon emperor about to breathe fire on everyone, and it's about the missing hatchlings," Tyler interrupted. There was a beat of silence. "What about them?" Lauren asked cautiously. "I need to know why they're being separated. What treaty is Emperor Kraz negotiating that involves sending his children to different worlds?" Another pause. "How do you know about that?" "That information is classified diplomatic." "Never mind, I don't want to know. Look, it's the tripartite peace accord. The Empire is finally making peace with the Sidari Federation and the Alturian Collective. As a gesture of good faith, each of the Emperor's three hatchlings is being sent to live in the capital of one of the three powers." Tyler processed this information. "So it's a hostage exchange disguised as a diplomatic gesture?" "Tyler," Lauren's voice dropped to a whisper, "be very careful about throwing words like hostage around right now. But yes, essentially, it's an ancient Drakian tradition. The recipients are bound by honor to care for the royal offspring as their own. And before you ask, yes, I think it's horrible too. They're just children. But this treaty could end centuries of war that has claimed billions of lives." Tyler looked at the three hatchlings now huddled together in his lap, sensing the gravity of the conversation. "Is there any alternative? Any precedent for keeping the hatchlings together?" "Not that I know of," Lauren replied. "But I'm not an expert on Drakian customs." "Tyler, what's this about? Do you know something about the missing hatchlings?" Tyler hesitated. Lauren was his friend, one of the few he'd made on the station, but she was also human Ambassador Whitaker's aide. She had responsibilities to the diplomatic mission. Just curious, he said finally. The whole station's talking about it. Thanks for the information. Stay safe. He ended the call before Lauren could press further. The hatchlings looked up at him expectantly. We need to find someone who understands Drakian customs better, Tyler told them. Someone who might know a way to keep you together while still satisfying the requirements of this peace treaty. Tyler had been cleaning the diplomatic sections of Nexus Station for years. While most diplomats barely noticed him, some had been kind enough to acknowledge his existence, even engage in occasional conversation. One such diplomat was Zorlak, the elderly representative from Vasner, a world that had been allied with the Drakian Empire for centuries. If anyone might know of diplomatic alternatives, it would be Zorlak. The problem was getting to the Vasnerians' quarters during a station-wide lockdown. Tyler looked at his cleaning cart thoughtfully, then at his uniform, then back at the hatchlings. I have an idea, he said slowly. But you three need to stay completely hidden and quiet. Can you do that? The hatchlings projected determined agreement. Tyler removed his uniform jacket and arranged it in the bottom of his cart's large trash receptacle, creating a makeshift nest. The hatchlings climbed in without prompting, and Tyler covered them with a thin cloth that would allow them to breathe, but keep them hidden from casual observation. Security will be focused on the diplomatic sector and docking bays, Tyler muttered to himself as he checked his appearance in the small mirror he kept in the closet. But maintenance staff are still allowed movement for essential functions. Tyler took a deep breath and pushed his cart out of the maintenance closet. He adopted the slightly hunched posture and tired expression of someone simply doing their job. Head down, nothing suspicious here. He made his way through the service corridors, nodding to the occasional security officer but not making eye contact. Most security personnel were humans or Terran-allied species who had little interest in a human janitor going about his business. As Tyler approached the Vasnerian diplomatic sector, security became tighter. A checkpoint had been established, staffed by 2 human security officers and a hulking Drakian guard. Tyler's heart rate spiked, but he maintained his nondescript demeanor. One of the human guards held up a hand as Tyler approached. Station's in lockdown, maintenance. What's your business here? Tyler gestured to his cart. Waste management for the Vasnerian section. Their environmental systems are separate from the main station, and their waste needs special handling. Ambassador Zorlak specifically requested service despite the lockdown. The human guard looked skeptical. I don't have that on my clearance list. Tyler shrugged, the picture of a put-upon worker. Take it up with Central. I'm just following orders. You know how the Vasnerians get about their environmental conditions. Remember last month when their air filtration wasn't serviced on schedule? 3 diplomatic incidents and a formal complaint to the station administrator. The human guard winced at the memory and glanced at his Drakian counterpart, who remained impassive. Fine, but make it quick. In and out, no detours. Wouldn't dream of it, Tyler said, pushing his cart through the checkpoint. Once past the guards, Tyler moved quickly through the curved corridors of the Vasnerian diplomatic section. The architecture here changed, ceilings higher, lighting dimmer, air heavier with moisture. The Vasnerians were amphibious beings who preferred humid environments. Tyler reached Ambassador Zorlak's private quarters and pressed the notification panel. After a moment, the door slid open to reveal the ambassador, a tall, slender being with mottled green-blue skin and large, bulbous eyes. Elaborate gill structures adorned the sides of Zorlak's neck, fluttering gently in the humid air of the chamber. Maintenance. Zorlak's voice was melodic, with an underlying gurgle. I did not request. Ambassador. Tyler interrupted quietly. I apologize for the intrusion, but I need your help with a matter of extreme diplomatic sensitivity. May I come in? Zorlak's large eyes blinked slowly, pupils contracting as they focused on Tyler. The ambassador was known for their perceptiveness. You are the human who cleans the conference rooms, Zorlak observed. The one who straightened my cultural artifacts correctly after the Centaurian delegation knocked them over. Tyler was surprised the ambassador remembered such a small interaction. Yes, ambassador. Zorlak stepped aside, gesturing with a webbed hand. Enter, human. I sense urgency in your manner. Once inside with the door closed, Tyler moved quickly to his cart and gently removed the cloth covering. 3 scaled heads immediately popped up, looking around with curious eyes. Zorlak made a startled, gurgling sound, gill structures flaring wide. The Imperial Hatchlings. You have brought them here? Human, do you realize what you have done? They came to me, Tyler explained quickly. They can communicate telepathically. They don't want to be separated as part of this peace treaty. I thought you might know if there's an alternative, some diplomatic solution that would allow them to stay together while still fulfilling the treaty requirements. Zorlak moved closer, examining the hatchlings with evident wonder. They established mental contact with you? Extraordinary. Drakian hatchlings rarely form such bonds outside their species, and never with humans, to my knowledge. The hatchlings chittered happily at Zorlak, seemingly comfortable with the Vasnarian's presence. They're intelligent beings with their own desires and feelings, Tyler said firmly. Sending them to different worlds against their will seems wrong, peace treaty or not. Zorlak's expression was difficult for Tyler to read, but the ambassador's next words were thoughtful. The tripartite peace accord is delicate, years in the making. The tradition of offering royal offspring as symbols of trust is ancient and sacred to the Drakians. The ambassador paused. However, there may be an alternative that I recall from historical texts. Tyler leaned forward eagerly. What alternative? The Rite of Kethrak, Zorlak said slowly. A rarely invoked tradition wherein royal offspring may select a guardian, a protector who becomes responsible for them. This guardian must be accepted by all parties to the treaty and becomes, in essence, a neutral party entrusted with the Empire's most precious possessions. Tyler frowned. That sounds like it would require someone of high diplomatic standing. I was thinking more along the lines of keeping them together at one of the treaty worlds. Zorlak made a bubbling sound that Tyler interpreted as laughter. You misunderstand, human. The hatchlings have already selected their guardian. They have chosen you. Tyler's mouth fell open. Me? But I'm just a janitor. Yes, Zorlak finished. Which makes you perhaps the perfect neutral party. You have no political allegiance beyond your human heritage. You move through diplomatic spaces unnoticed yet essential. And most importantly, the hatchlings have formed a bond with you of their own volition. The green-tinged hatchling, Stormclaw, Tyler remembered, climbed out of the cart and up Tyler's arm, settling on his shoulder with a contented chirp. This won't work, Tyler protested. Emperor Kraz would never accept a human janitor as guardian for his children. Zorlak tilted their head. Perhaps not under normal circumstances. But the Emperor is currently facing a significant diplomatic crisis. His hatchlings are missing, and without them, the treaty cannot proceed. All 3 signatory powers are assembled. The alternative is political embarrassment and potentially the collapse of the peace process. The ambassador moved to a communications panel. With your permission, I will contact the Imperial delegation. I have served the Drakian court for many cycles and have some small influence. Tyler looked at the 3 hatchlings, who were all watching him intently. Flametail projected a clear thought. Trust. Tyler nodded. Do it. The next hour was a blur of diplomatic communication, with Zorlak expertly navigating the complexities of Imperial protocol. The ambassador explained the situation, omitting how exactly the hatchlings had been found, and invoked the ancient Rite of Kethrak. Tyler stood nervously in the center of Zorlak's chambers. All 3 hatchlings now perched on him in various positions, as the communication panel showed a succession of increasingly high-ranking Drakian officials. Finally, the screen flickered and revealed an enormous Drakian face, scales gleaming like polished obsidian, eyes burning with inner fire. Emperor Kraz himself. Ambassador Zorlak. The Emperor's voice rumbled, deep enough that Tyler felt it in his chest. You claim my offspring have invoked the Rite of Kethrak? This has not been done in 7 generations. Indeed, Your Majesty, Zorlak replied, bowing deeply. Yet the circumstances are unprecedented. Your intelligent and perceptive offspring have formed a bond with this human and wish to remain together under his guardianship. The Emperor's burning gaze shifted to Tyler, who fought the urge to shrink back. The hatchlings, however, perked up at the sight of their father, chirping excitedly. Human, the Emperor addressed Tyler directly. Do you understand what is being proposed? You would become guardian to the royal hatchlings of the Drakian Empire. Your life would no longer be your own. You would be bound to their protection and education until they reach maturity. Tyler swallowed hard. How long would that be, Your Majesty? Approximately 20 of your Earth years, the Emperor replied impassively. 20 years. Tyler's mind reeled. His sister's treatments would be complete in 2 years. His life plans, his deferred dreams of engineering, all would have to change. He looked at the 3 small beings who had placed their trust in him. Flametail in his lap, Skysinger on his shoulder, Stormclaw on his head. They had chosen him. If this will keep them together and secure the peace treaty, Tyler said, surprising himself with the steadiness in his voice, then I accept the responsibility, Your Majesty. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. You understand that should any harm come to them under your care, the consequence would be the immediate resumption of hostilities? Billions of lives would be forfeit. I understand, Tyler replied. The Emperor was silent for a long moment, studying Tyler. Then, to everyone's surprise, he let out a rumbling sound that might have been laughter. My offspring have always been willful, the Emperor said. It seems they have inherited their mother's discernment in choosing allies. The right of Kethrak is sacred. If they have chosen you, human, then the Empire recognizes their choice. Tyler felt light-headed with relief. However, the Emperor continued, certain conditions must be met. You will relocate to Nexus Station's neutral diplomatic quarter. You will receive training in Drakian culture and customs. Representatives from all 3 treaty powers will have visitation rights to ensure the hatchlings' well-being. And you will present the hatchlings at formal functions related to the treaty implementation. That seems reasonable, Your Majesty, Tyler managed to say. The Emperor's massive head inclined slightly. Ambassador Zorlak, prepare the ritual documentation for the rite of Kethrak. I will inform the Sidari and Alturian delegations of this development. His burning gaze returned to Tyler. Human, what is your name? Tyler Grant, Your Majesty. Tyler Grant. The Emperor repeated, the name sounding strange in his rumbling voice. You now bear a great responsibility. Do not disappoint me. The communication ended, leaving the room in sudden silence. Zorlak turned to Tyler, gill structures fluttering with what seemed like excitement. Congratulations, Guardian Grant. You have just made galactic history. Tyler sank into a chair, the full weight of what had just happened settling on him. The hatchlings swarmed over him, projecting feelings of joy and triumph. What happens now? Tyler asked weakly. Now, Zorlak said, we prepare for the rite of Kethrak ceremony. It will be conducted in the presence of all treaty signatories. It is elaborate. As Zorlak predicted, the ceremony was indeed elaborate. Tyler found himself standing in the grand central chamber of Nexus Station, wearing ornate ceremonial robes provided by the Drakian delegation. Before him stood Emperor Kraz in full imperial regalia, flanked by the leaders of the Sidari Federation and the Alturian Collective. The hatchlings, groomed and adorned with ceremonial markers, sat proudly in a triangle formation in front of Tyler. The entire diplomatic corps of Nexus Station watched from the surrounding galleries. Tyler caught sight of Lauren in the human delegation, her expression a mixture of astonishment and pride. Nearby stood his former supervisor, Malthagape. The ceremony involved ritual fire, controlled by force fields, thankfully, ancient Drakian oaths that Tyler repeated phonetically, and finally, a moment when each hatchling placed a clawed hand over Tyler's heart, while Emperor Kraz recited the binding words of guardianship. As the final words were spoken, Tyler felt a warm glow spread through his chest, emanating from where the hatchlings touched him. It wasn't uncomfortable, but he knew immediately that something profound had changed. The bond that had begun as a tentative telepathic connection was now something deeper, more permanent. Guardian came the unified thought from all three hatchlings, their mental voices stronger and clearer than before. Asterisk, we are bound. We are family now. Asterisk. The diplomatic quarters assigned to Tyler and his three charges were luxurious beyond anything he had ever experienced. Spacious rooms with climate-controlled areas to accommodate the hatchlings' need for heat, advanced communication systems, and even a small garden space with plants from Earth and the Drakian homeworld. His first night as official guardian to the Imperial hatchlings, Tyler sat in a ridiculously comfortable chair, all three of his charges curled up in his lap, sleeping peacefully. They had played hard all day, exploring their new home, projecting their thoughts and feelings to Tyler with increasing clarity as the bond between them strengthened. Now they lay curled together, looking for all the world like three exotic kittens, their scaled bodies rising and falling with gentle breaths, occasional wisps of steam escaping from their nostrils. Tyler gently stroked Flametail's head, marveling at how his life had changed in less than 48 hours. He had gone from anonymous janitor to a key figure in a historic peace treaty. He had 20 years ahead of him, raising three alien royal offspring with the ability to breathe plasma. It should have terrified him. Instead, as he looked down at the sleeping hatchlings, he felt something he hadn't experienced since before his parents' deaths, a sense of purpose, of belonging, of family. His communicator chimed softly. It was Lauren. So, her voice came through quietly. Guardian of the Imperial hatchlings. That's quite a career change from maintenance worker. Tyler smiled. Life takes some unexpected turns. Station Administrator Hodges is still trying to process how this happened, Lauren said, amusement in her voice. 1 minute he's preparing for a diplomatic catastrophe. The next minute the galaxy's most feared emperor is performing an ancient ritual, making a human janitor the guardian of his children. Former janitor, Tyler corrected. Your new title comes with diplomatic status, you know, Lauren continued. You're technically an ambassador now, representing both humanity and the Drakian royal family. Tyler looked down at the sleeping hatchlings. I think I'm more focused on being a good guardian than a diplomat. Well, as the human ambassador's aide, I've been assigned as your cultural liaison, Lawrence said. Apparently, we need to make sure you don't commit any grave human cultural faux pas while raising three alien dragon royals. I appreciate the help, Tyler said sincerely. I'm going to need it. After ending the call, Tyler carefully gathered the sleeping hatchlings and carried them to the nest-like structure that had been installed in their sleeping chamber. As he settled them in, Flametail stirred slightly. Happy, came the sleepy thought. Asterisk safe. Together, asterisk. Yes, Tyler whispered, gently stroking the hatchling's head. Together. As the days turned into weeks and then months, Tyler adjusted to his new role with the help of a steady stream of tutors, advisors, and diplomatic representatives. He learned Drakian history, customs, and even made progress with the spoken language, though the telepathic bond with the hatchlings made verbal communication largely unnecessary between them. The hatchlings grew rapidly, both physically and intellectually. By 6 months into his guardianship, they had each doubled in size, and their telepathic abilities had developed to the point where they could communicate complex concepts and even share sensory experiences with Tyler. Tyler arranged daily video calls with his sister back on Earth, who was delighted by her brother's unexpected adoption of 3 alien royal children. Her health had improved significantly, and the generous stipend provided for Tyler's guardianship role meant she wanted for nothing. Perhaps most surprisingly, Tyler found himself becoming a sort of unofficial diplomat. Other species who had previously been wary of approaching the fearsome Drakians found it easier to engage through the human guardian. Tyler and his charges were invited to cultural exchanges, educational functions, and even trade negotiations where the presence of the imperial offspring sent a strong message about Drakian commitment to peaceful relations. 1 year into his guardianship, Tyler stood on an observation deck of Nexus Station, watching a shuttle approach. The hatchlings, now the size of medium dogs, pressed against the viewport with excitement. Father comes, Stormclaw projected, the most rambunctious of the three, practically vibrating with anticipation. The imperial visit had been planned for months. Emperor Kraz was conducting his annual inspection of his offspring's well-being and development, as stipulated in the treaty. Tyler straightened his formal diplomatic attire, still not entirely comfortable in such finery. "Remember your protocols," he reminded the hatchlings. "Your father expects proper decorum." "We remember," Skysinger assured him, the most serene of the three, projecting calm confidence. "We will make you proud, Guardian," added Flametail, who had emerged as the natural leader of the clutch. The Emperor's entrance was preceded by an honor guard of Drakian warriors and diplomatic representatives. When Emperor Kraz himself appeared, his massive form dominating the chamber, Tyler bowed deeply as he had been instructed. The hatchlings arranged themselves in the traditional triangle formation, heads lowered in respect. The Emperor approached slowly, examining his offspring with burning eyes. Then, breaking with formal protocol, all three hatchlings rushed forward simultaneously, swarming up their father's massive form to perch on his shoulders and head. Instead of the reprimand Tyler expected, the Emperor produced that rumbling sound that passed for Drakian laughter. "They have grown strong," the Emperor observed, addressing Tyler while his offspring chirped and projected to their father. "You have done well, Guardian Grant." "Thank you, Your Majesty," Tyler replied, relief flooding through him. "They are remarkable students." What followed was 3 days of intensive assessment, with Imperial tutors testing the hatchlings' knowledge of Drakian history, language, and customs. Tyler watched proudly as his charges demonstrated not only what they had been formally taught, but also showed creativity and problem-solving skills that impressed even the stern Imperial educators. On the final evening of the Emperor's visit, Tyler was summoned to a private audience. He entered the Emperor's temporary quarters with trepidation, but found the massive Drakian ruler in an almost relaxed posture, the hatchlings playing nearby. "Guardian Grant," the Emperor rumbled, "my offspring tell me much of their life with you. They share their experiences through the bond." Tyler nodded. "They've become very skilled with their telepathic abilities, Your Majesty." The Emperor's burning eyes studied Tyler. "They show me images of you reading Earth stories to them, teaching them human games, sharing your cultural practices alongside their Drakian studies." Tyler swallowed nervously. "I believed a balanced education would serve them best, Your Majesty. I've been careful to prioritize their Drakian heritage." The Emperor raised a massive clawed hand, stopping Tyler's anxious explanation. "Their minds are sharp. Their bodies strong. They are learning what it means to be Drakian while also understanding other perspectives." The Emperor paused. "This is valuable." Tyler realized with astonishment that he was receiving approval from the Dragon Emperor. "The treaty stands strong," the Emperor continued. "The Sidari and Alturian delegations report satisfaction with the arrangement. Peace holds. You have fulfilled your duty well this first cycle." "Thank you, Your Majesty," Tyler said, genuinely moved by the acknowledgement. "One thing troubles me," the Emperor said, his tone shifting. "My offspring tell me you still perform menial tasks yourself, despite the service staff assigned to your quarters." Tyler blinked, caught off guard by the observation. "Oh well, old habits, I suppose. I'm used to taking care of things myself." The Emperor made a sound that might have been a snort. "You were selected by Imperial offspring. You hold diplomatic rank. Yet you clean floors and prepare meals with your own hands. I find it grounding," Tyler explained carefully. "And I think it's good for the hatchlings to see that no honest work is beneath dignity." The Emperor was silent for a long moment, regarding Tyler with unreadable eyes. Finally, he spoke. "Perhaps there is wisdom in this human perspective. My offspring will one day hold positions of great power. Understanding the dignity of all work may serve them well." The visit concluded with a formal ceremony reaffirming the tripartite peace accord, with Tyler and the hatchlings front and center. As the Emperor departed, he placed one massive clawed hand on Tyler's shoulder, a gesture of respect that caused a ripple of whispers throughout the diplomatic corps. Life settled into a new rhythm after the Imperial visit. The hatchlings continued to grow and learn, their personalities becoming more distinct as they matured. Diplomatic functions became routine, and Tyler found himself increasingly comfortable in his role as both guardian and unofficial ambassador. 5 years passed in this manner, with annual Imperial visits, regular diplomatic functions, and the daily joy and challenge of raising 3 increasingly independent and powerful young Drakians. By the 5th year, the hatchlings, no longer accurately described as hatchlings but not yet adults by Drakian standards, had grown to the size of large Earth wolves. Their telepathic abilities had developed to the point where they could communicate with a select few others beyond Tyler, though the bond they shared with him remained unique and special. It was during the 5th annual Imperial visit that a crisis erupted. A radical faction opposed to the peace treaty attacked a Sidari outpost, claiming to act in the name of Drakian supremacy. The diplomatic repercussions threatened to unravel the fragile peace that had been maintained. Emperor Kraz was recalled to the Drakian homeworld mid-visit. Before departing, he summoned Tyler and his offspring to a private audience. "The peace is threatened," the Emperor stated bluntly. "There are those who would return us to war." Tyler nodded grimly. "We've been following the reports, Your Majesty." The Emperor turned to his offspring. "You have lived these 5 cycles in peace, learning the ways of many species. What say you of these events?" Tyler watched with pride as his charges considered the question seriously. Flametail stepped forward. "War serves none but the power-hungry and vengeful. The treaty has brought prosperity to all 3 realms. Skysinger joined her clutchmate. The attackers do not represent true Drakian values. They dishonor the Imperial name with false claims of acting in its interest. Stormclaw, always the most action-oriented, completed the triangle. They must be brought to justice swiftly, Father, by Drakian authority, to show our commitment to peace. The Emperor's burning gaze moved from one young Drakian to the next, then settled on Tyler. "Your influence is evident in their thinking, Guardian Grant." Tyler tensed, uncertain if this was criticism or observation. "They see beyond simple aggression and dominance," the Emperor continued. "They consider consequences, reputation, justice." A pause. "They think like leaders, not merely warriors." Relief flooded through Tyler. "They are exceptional beings, Your Majesty. I simply help guide their natural wisdom." The Emperor rose to his full imposing height. "I must return to the homeworld to address this crisis. You and my offspring will remain here, where you are protected by the neutrality of Nexus Station." After the Emperor's departure, tension on the station increased. Diplomatic functions were suspended, security protocols heightened. Tyler watched news reports anxiously, worried about how the crisis would unfold. The young Drakians sensed his concern and sought to reassure him. "Father is wise," Flametail projected one evening as they gathered in their living quarters. "He will resolve this without war." "I hope you're right," Tyler replied, absently stroking Skysinger's head as she lay beside him on the couch. "But 5 years of peace isn't enough to erase centuries of conflict. Old hatreds die hard. Then we must be the future that chooses differently," Stormclaw projected firmly, pacing the room with restless energy. "When we take our places in Imperial service, we will remember these lessons." Tyler looked at his charges with a mixture of pride and melancholy. In 15 more years, they would reach full maturity by Drakian standards. His guardianship would end, and they would return to Imperial service. The thought of eventually parting from them created a hollow feeling in his chest. "You are sad, Guardian," Skysinger observed, always the most sensitive to emotional undercurrents. "Just thinking about the future," Tyler admitted. "Someday you'll return to your father's court, and You will come with us," Flametail interrupted with such certainty that Tyler blinked in surprise. "The bond is permanent," Stormclaw added. "Where we go, you go." "Family," Skysinger projected simply, resting her head on Tyler's knee. Before Tyler could respond, the station's alert system activated. "Attention, all diplomatic personnel. A Sidari delegation ship is approaching under emergency protocols. Medical teams to Docking Bay 3. Security teams on standby. The young Drakians were instantly alert, heads raised, sensing the urgency in the announcement. Tyler's communicator chimed. It was Lauren, now the human ambassador's chief of staff. Tyler, you and your charges need to come to the main diplomatic chamber immediately. The Sidari High Chancellor has been injured in an assassination attempt. He's being brought to Nexus Station for emergency treatment and has specifically requested your presence. The situation was dire. The Sidari High Chancellor, a key architect of the peace treaty, lay in the station's medical bay, injured but stable after an assassination attempt by the same radical faction that had attacked the outpost. Representatives from all treaty powers had assembled in the diplomatic chamber, tensions running high. Tyler entered with his 3 charges, who maintained perfect diplomatic posture despite the heightened emotions they surely sensed in the room. The Sidari delegation's acting leader, Sub-Chancellor Varix, approached them immediately. Guardian Grant, the insectoid diplomat, clicked and translated standard, compound eyes reflecting the chamber's lights. The High Chancellor insisted we consult with you and the Imperial offspring before any official response is formulated. Tyler was taken aback. I'm honored by the Chancellor's trust, but surely this is a matter for the treaty powers to decide. The Chancellor believes you offer a unique perspective, Varix replied. As guardian to Drakian royalty, yet human by birth, you stand at the intersection of worlds. More importantly, the Imperial offspring have lived their formative years under the peace. Their perspective is valuable. The Alturian representative, a crystalline being named Zenith, joined them. The Alturian collective concurs. The young Imperials and their guardian represent the living embodiment of our treaty's success. Tyler looked at his charges, who formed their customary triangle formation, projecting reassurance to him through their bond. With a slight nod, he addressed the assembled diplomats. What is the current situation? He asked. Over the next hour, representatives from all 3 powers laid out the facts. The radical faction, calling themselves true Drakians, had taken credit for both the outpost attack and the assassination attempt. They demanded the treaty be dissolved and the Imperial offspring returned to Drakian space to be raised in the true warrior tradition. Emperor Kraz had denounced the faction and ordered military action against them, but tensions were rising as some in the Sidari Federation called for a military response against Drakian interests, believing the Emperor's denunciation to be insufficient. When all facts had been presented, Sub-Chancellor Varix turned to Tyler. Guardian Grant, what counsel would you offer in this moment of crisis? Tyler took a deep breath, feeling the weight of expectation. Before he could respond, Flametail stepped forward, projecting his thoughts not just to Tyler but outward, attempting to reach the assembled diplomats. A gasp went through the chamber as several diplomats clutched their heads, experiencing the strange sensation of Drakian telepathic communication for the first time. We will speak directly to all treaty peoples, Flametail projected, her mental voice strong and clear, to show our commitment to peace. Tyler understood immediately what his charge was suggesting. The Imperial offspring wished to make a joint public statement, broadcast to all 3 treaty powers, denouncing the attacks and reaffirming their commitment to peace. The Drakian representative, a stern warrior named Krax, shook his massive head. Imperial offspring do not engage in public political discourse. It is not our way. These are not ordinary times, Stormclaw projected boldly. Tradition must sometimes yield to necessity. We are the future of the Empire, Skysinger added, her gentler mental voice somehow carrying equal weight. Let the people see that future chooses peace. The chamber erupted in discussion, with representatives arguing the merits and risks of such an unprecedented action. Tyler stood by his charges, proud of their initiative and wisdom. Finally, word came from Emperor Kraz himself, transmitted directly to the Drakian representative. Krax read the message and looked up with an expression of shock. His Imperial Majesty grants permission for his offspring to address the treaty worlds, Krax announced, with Guardian Grant at their side. Within hours, the broadcast was arranged. Tyler stood behind his 3 charges as cameras transmitted their image to billions across 3 interstellar powers. The young Drakians, now imposing in their own right, arranged themselves in their triangle formation, scales gleaming under the lights. Flametail spoke first, her voice having developed into a melodious rumble that carried authority beyond her years. People of the 3 realms, I am Flametail, daughter of Emperor Cross. With my clutchkin, I address you in a time of uncertainty. Skysinger continued, her voice gentler but no less compelling. Those who attack in the name of Drakian pride dishonor our heritage. True strength lies not in dominance, but in wisdom. Not in war, but in the courage to maintain peace. Stormclaw completed their message, his voice carrying the characteristic intensity that matched his personality. We stand united with our guardian Tyler Grant, who has taught us that bonds can form across the boundaries of species and history. We call upon all citizens of the treaty worlds to reject those who would return us to darkness. Then, in perfect unison, all 3 projected a telepathic wave of determination, hope, and unity. The sensation reached not just those physically present, but, through the broadcast, created a momentary psychic connection among all watching, a fleeting but powerful experience of shared purpose that transcended language. The effect was immediate and profound. Public opinion across all 3 realms shifted dramatically. The radical faction found their support evaporating as citizens recalled the sensation of unity they had briefly experienced. Emperor Cross, seizing the moment, launched decisive action against the faction's leadership, while the Sidari and Alturian governments publicly recommitted to the peace treaty. The crisis passed, though not without cost. Security remained heightened, and the young Drakians found their public appearances more carefully managed. But their action had turned a potential disaster into a triumph for peace. In the aftermath, Tyler found himself reflecting on how far they had all come from that day 5 years ago, when 3 missing hatchlings had climbed onto a janitor's lap seeking safety and connection. As the years continued to pass, Tyler watched his charges grow into impressive young Drakians, now standing nearly 7 feet tall, their intellects and abilities developing in ways that continually amazed him. Their annual visits from Emperor Cross became important diplomatic events, with the Emperor showing increasing respect for Tyler's guardianship methods. On the 10th anniversary of the Rite of Kethrak ceremony, a special celebration was held on Nexus Station. Representatives from all treaty powers attended, along with a substantial Drakian delegation. Tyler stood proudly beside his charges, who now towered over him, but still showed the same affection and respect they had as small hatchlings. Emperor Cross himself addressed the gathering. 10 cycles ago, an unexpected bond formed between my offspring and a human janitor. The Emperor's burning gaze fell on Tyler. Many, myself included, had doubts about this arrangement. Those doubts have been silenced by results. The peace holds. My offspring grows strong in body and wise in mind. Guardian Grant has fulfilled his duty beyond all expectation. The Emperor raised a ceremonial chalice. To 10 cycles of peace. To 10 more to come. Later that evening, as Tyler sat in their private quarters with his charges lounging around him in positions reminiscent of their earliest days together, he reflected on the journey they had shared. You know, Tyler said conversationally, when you first climbed onto my lap all those years ago, I never imagined we'd end up here. Flametail, now an imposing figure with scales that gleamed like polished onyx, tilted her head. Asterisk, did you regret accepting guardianship? Your life changed completely. Asterisk. Tyler smiled, reaching out to scratch the ridge above Flametail's eye in a gesture that had become familiar over the years. Not for a moment. You 3 are the best thing that ever happened to me. Skysinger, her scales now a deep sapphire blue with iridescent highlights, projected warm affection. Asterisk, we would not be who we are without you, Guardian. You showed us a different way to see the universe. Asterisk. Stormclaw, the largest of the 3 with emerald scales that crackled with barely contained energy, snorted a small flame. You taught us that strength can be found in quietness. That power is not always about plasma breath and claws. Tyler laughed. Though those do come in handy sometimes. They spent the evening reminiscing about their years together, the cultural misunderstandings, the diplomatic functions, the private moments of connection that had shaped them all. As his charges eventually retired to their sleeping chambers, now separate rooms that accommodated their large forms, Tyler felt a profound sense of accomplishment. The final 10 years of his guardianship passed with both challenges and triumphs. The young Drakians continued to grow in both size and wisdom, eventually reaching their full adult height of nearly 9 feet, with wingspans that required specially designed living quarters. Their diplomatic importance increased as they began taking on minor roles in treaty maintenance and interspecies relations. Tyler, now showing the first silver strands in his hair, remained their steadfast guardian, advisor, and family. The telepathic bond between them had deepened to the point where words, spoken or projected, were often unnecessary. A lifetime of shared experiences had created a connection that transcended conventional understanding. In the final year of the guardianship period, as the 20th anniversary approached, preparations began for the transition. According to tradition, the Imperial offspring would return to the Drakian homeworld to take up their positions in Imperial service. Tyler tried to prepare himself for the inevitable separation, though his charges continually assured him through their bond that they had no intention of truly parting from him. 1 month before the official end of guardianship, Emperor Kraz arrived on Nexus Station not for the usual annual visit, but for an extended stay to oversee the transition. The Emperor requested a private audience with Tyler without his offspring present. Tyler entered the Emperor's temporary quarters with a mixture of pride and melancholy. 20 years had passed since he had first taken on the role of guardian. He had devoted his adult life to raising 3 alien royals who were now ready to take their places in galactic affairs. Emperor Kraz, showing the first signs of age himself with slightly dulled scales and a more measured movement, regarded Tyler thoughtfully. Guardian Grant, the Emperor rumbled. 20 cycles ago, I entrusted you with my offspring against all convention and precedent. It was a political necessity at the time, a compromise to salvage a treaty. Tyler nodded. I understand, Your Majesty, and I'm prepared for the end of my guardianship as required by tradition. The Emperor made a dismissive gesture with one massive clawed hand. Tradition is a guide, not a prison. My offspring have thrived under your care in ways I did not anticipate. They understand diplomacy not as a game of power, but as a path to mutual benefit. They see other species not as inferiors, but as potential allies with unique strengths. Tyler remained silent, sensing there was more to come. The treaty you helped preserve has expanded beyond the original 3 powers. We now have peaceful relations with 17 interstellar civilizations. Trade has flourished. Cultural exchange has enriched all worlds involved. The Emperor's burning eyes fixed on Tyler. These are not traditional Drakian values. Yet I cannot argue with the results. Your offspring are exceptional beings, Your Majesty, Tyler said carefully. I merely helped guide their natural wisdom. The Emperor produced that rumbling sound that passed for laughter. You say this each time we meet, human. After 20 cycles, perhaps it is time to acknowledge your own role in shaping that wisdom. Tyler inclined his head in acknowledgement. I have a proposal, the Emperor continued. One without precedent in our history. When my offspring return to Imperial service, they will require an advisor familiar with the diplomatic realities they have helped shape. Someone who understands both Drakian tradition and the perspectives of other species. Tyler's heart rate increased as he began to understand what was being suggested. The position would hold diplomatic rank equivalent to a high counselor, the Emperor said. You would continue to work closely with my offspring as they transition into their new roles. Your experience and unique perspective would be valuable to the Imperial court. Tyler found himself momentarily speechless. The Emperor was offering him a permanent position in the Drakian Imperial court, an unprecedented honor for a human and a solution to the separation he had been dreading. I would be honored, Your Majesty," Tyler finally managed to say. The Emperor nodded once, decisively. "Then it is settled. The formal announcement will be made at the transition ceremony." 1 week later, Nexus Station's Grand Diplomatic Chamber was filled to capacity for the transition ceremony. Representatives from not just the original 3 treaty powers, but all 17 now allied civilizations were present. The human delegation was prominently positioned, a recognition of Tyler's role in fostering the peace that had transformed galactic politics. Tyler stood proudly beside his 3 charges, now magnificent adult Drakians who commanded attention by their mere presence. Their scales gleamed under the lights, Flametail's obsidian black, Skysinger's deep blue, Stormclaw's vibrant emerald. They had arranged themselves in the triangle formation that had become their signature over the years. Emperor Kraz performed the ritual that officially marked the end of guardianship, speaking the ancient words in the Drakian language that Tyler now understood fluently. As each of his charges stepped forward to receive the imperial mark on their foreheads, a ceremonial pigment that would fade with time but symbolized their return to imperial service, Tyler felt a swell of emotion that he couldn't entirely contain. "Pride," came Skysinger's gentle thought. "We feel it too, Guardian." "Not ending," Stormclaw projected firmly. "Transforming." "Always connected," Flametail added, her mental voice carrying the authority she had developed as the natural leader of the clutch. After the traditional elements of the ceremony were complete, Emperor Kraz raised a massive clawed hand for silence. The chamber grew still in anticipation. 20 cycles ago, the Emperor's voice rumbled throughout the chamber. Necessity led to innovation. A human became guardian to Drakian royalty. Many doubted the wisdom of this arrangement. A pause. I myself was among those doubters. The Emperor gestured to Tyler and his offspring. Today, we see the results. Peace where there was war. Prosperity where there was conflict. Understanding where there was ignorance. The Emperor turned to face Tyler directly. Guardian Grant has fulfilled his duty with honor and wisdom. Tradition would have him return to his previous life, his service complete. But wisdom sometimes requires us to look beyond tradition. A murmur went through the assembled diplomats. I hereby appoint Tyler Grant as Imperial Diplomatic Consul, with all rights, privileges, and responsibilities thereof. He will continue to serve the imperial family as advisor to my offspring in their new roles as ambassadors of peace. The announcement caused a sensation throughout the chamber. Humans in the delegation applauded loudly. Representatives from other species made their own gestures of approval according to their customs. The 3 adult Drakians projected unified satisfaction that rippled through the chamber, touching the minds of many present. As the ceremony concluded and the formal reception began, Tyler found himself surrounded by well-wishers from across the diplomatic spectrum. Lauren, now human ambassador herself, embraced him warmly. "Not bad for a janitor from Earth," she said with a grin. Tyler laughed. "Just a series of unexpected turns." "Will you miss Nexus Station?" Lauren asked. "The Drakian homeworld is quite different from what you're used to." Tyler glanced across the room where his 3 charges, no longer charges but colleagues now, stood conversing with diplomats, their regal bearing and thoughtful discourse a testament to their upbringing. "Home isn't a place," Tyler said simply. "It's the connections we make. They're my family. Where they go, I go." Later that evening, after the reception had ended and they had returned to their quarters for one of the last times, Tyler sat with his 3 Drakian family members in comfortable silence. Tomorrow they would board the Imperial vessel for the journey to the Drakian homeworld. A new chapter would begin. Flametail, ever perceptive, broke the silence. "You are contemplating the journey ahead, Guardian." Tyler nodded. 20 years ago, I was cleaning floors and worrying about making ends meet. Now I'm heading to the Imperial Court as a diplomatic consul. Life takes some unexpected turns. The best turns are those we could not anticipate, Skysinger observed, her voice melodious. Like 3 hatchlings finding a human with a compatible mind. Or a lonely janitor finding 3 lost dragon children in need of protection, Stormclaw added. Tyler smiled, looking at the three magnificent beings who had changed his life completely. From tiny hatchlings who could fit in his pocket to towering adult Drakians with the power to shape galactic politics. From a chance encounter to a bond that would last a lifetime. "I wouldn't change a thing," Tyler said softly. "Not a single moment. Nor would we," came their unified thought, warm with affection and absolute certainty. And that was how the most unlikely family in the galaxy began their next great adventure together. Not as guardian and wards, but as equals united by a bond that had started 20 years ago when three frightened hatchlings had found safety and understanding in a human janitor's lap. And that was the end of the story. If you listened all the way to here, don't forget to leave feedback about what you thought of the story in the comments, whether positive or negative. Your feedback helps us improve. Also leave your like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one. And I'll leave here on the screen another video that I'm sure you'll like. Big hug, and see you in the next story.